The morning sun filtered through the large windows of Maple Street Cafe, casting warm golden rays across the weathered wooden tables. Michael Carter sat in his usual corner spot, his fingers wrapped around a steaming cup of coffee, savoring the familiar blend of roasted beans and the gentle hum of conversation that filled the air. Beside him, Zeus lay with the dignified composure of a retired K-9 officer, his thick German shepherd coat gleaming in the sunlight. The dog's amber eyes remained alert despite his relaxed posture, a testament to years of faithful service. Michael's world was one of sounds, scents, and textures. The cafe had become his sanctuary, a place where the barista knew his order by heart, where the regulars greeted him by name, and where Zeus could rest his graying muzzle on the cool tile floor. The gentle clink of spoons against ceramic, the whisper of turning newspaper pages, and the soft padding of footsteps created a symphony of normalcy that brought Michael profound comfort. Zeus had been his constant companion for 3 years now, ever since the dog's retirement from the police force. Their bond transcended the typical relationship between a man and his guide dog. They were partners who had learned to read each other's every breath, every subtle shift in posture. When Michael's fingers found the soft fur behind Zeus's ears, the dog's tail would thump once against the floor, their private signal that all was well with the world. The peaceful morning was shattered by the aggressive roar of motorcycle engines pulling up outside the cafe. 3 Harley-Davidsons came to a stop with deliberate fanfare, their chrome gleaming like weapons in the sunlight. The leader, a man called Chuck, swung his leg over his bike with theatrical swagger. His leather vest bore patches that spoke of a life lived on the margins, and his eyes held the cold calculation of someone accustomed to intimidating others. Michael felt the change in the cafe's atmosphere immediately. Conversations died to whispers, chairs scraped against the floor as patrons shifted uncomfortably, and the air itself seemed to thicken with tension. Zeus lifted his head, his ears pricking forward as his training kicked in. The dog's body language shifted subtly, still lying down, but now coiled like a spring, ready to respond to any threat. Chuck's boots struck the floor with heavy, deliberate steps as he surveyed the cafe like a predator selecting prey. His gaze swept over the nervous patrons before settling on the corner where Michael sat with Zeus. A cruel smile played at the corners of his mouth as he recognized an opportunity to assert his dominance. "Well, well," Chuck announced loudly, his voice cutting through the cafe's hushed atmosphere like a blade. "Look what we have here, a tough guy with his attack dog." His words dripped with mockery as he approached Michael's table, his friends flanking him with matching grins. Michael's jaw tightened, but he remained seated, his hand instinctively moving to rest on Zeus's neck. The dog's muscles tensed beneath his palm, and Michael could feel the subtle vibration of a low, warning growl building in Zeus's chest. Years of partnership had taught Michael to trust Zeus's instincts completely. If his companion sensed danger, then danger was real. "That's quite a beast you've got there," Chuck continued, his voice taking on a taunting edge. "I wonder if he's as tough as he looks." Without warning, Chuck reached out toward Zeus's snout, his movement quick and aggressive. Zeus's response was immediate and unmistakable. A deep, rumbling growl erupted from his throat, his lips pulling back to reveal gleaming white teeth. His amber eyes locked onto Chuck's with the unwavering intensity of a trained protector. The sound sent a chill through the cafe, and several patrons gasped audibly. Chuck jerked his hand back, his face flushing red with embarrassment as his friends burst into mocking laughter. "What's wrong, Chuck?" one of them jeered. "Scared of a old dog?" The taunts hit their mark, and Chuck's humiliation quickly transformed into rage. In a moment of petulant fury, Chuck lashed out with his boot, sending a nearby chair skittering across the floor toward Zeus. But the retired K-9 was far from helpless. With the fluid grace of an athlete, Zeus sprang to his feet and sidestepped the chair with ease, his movements precise and controlled. "Stop it!" A woman's voice rang out from across the cafe, sharp with indignation. "Leave that man and his dog alone." Her words seemed to break the spell of fear that had gripped the other patrons, and murmurs of agreement began to ripple through the crowd. But Chuck was beyond reason now, his pride wounded, and his anger consuming what little restraint he possessed. He stepped forward and shoved Michael hard by the shoulder, sending the blind man stumbling backward in his chair. Zeus's transformation was instantaneous and magnificent. The gentle companion became a formidable guardian, positioning himself between Michael and Chuck with the fluid precision of his police training. His stance was perfect, balanced, alert, ready to defend his partner at any cost. The growl that emanated from his throat was no longer a warning, it was a promise. The cafe erupted in outrage. "Get out of here!" voices called from every corner. "You should be ashamed!" The crowd's anger was palpable, their collective disgust at Chuck's behavior creating a wall of social pressure that even he couldn't ignore. Faced with the unified opposition of the entire cafe and the unwavering determination of a trained police dog, Chuck and his friends found themselves outmatched. With muttered curses and wounded pride, they retreated toward the door, their bravado crumbling under the weight of public condemnation. Michael and Zeus made their way home through the familiar streets, but the morning's events had changed everything. Zeus walked with heightened alertness, his head turning at every sound, his body language speaking of a dog who had shifted into full protective mode. Michael could feel the tension radiating from his companion, and it filled him with both gratitude and unease. Their apartment building came into view, a modest 3-story structure with ivy climbing its brick walls. Michael's ground floor unit had been chosen specifically for its accessibility, with wide doorways and an open floor plan that allowed him to navigate with confidence. But today, even this familiar sanctuary felt different, touched by the shadow of the morning's confrontation. As they climbed the front steps, Zeus paused, his nose working the air with the thoroughness of his training. Michael waited patiently, trusting his partner's instincts. When Zeus finally relaxed and continued forward, Michael knew they were safe, for now. Evening settled over the city like a heavy blanket, bringing with it an oppressive sense of foreboding. Michael had just finished his dinner when the sharp rap of knuckles against his front door shattered the peaceful quiet of his apartment. Zeus was on his feet instantly, a low growl rumbling in his chest as he positioned himself between Michael and the door. "I know you're in there," Chuck's voice called through the wood, slurred with alcohol and thick with menace. "We need to finish our conversation from this morning." Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as he remained perfectly still in his chair. Years of living with blindness had taught him the value of silence, of becoming invisible when danger lurked nearby. "Go away," he called out, his voice steady despite his fear. "I'm calling the police." "You do that," Chuck laughed, the sound harsh and ugly in the quiet hallway. "But I'll be long gone before they get here." What followed was a nightmare of psychological warfare. Chuck and his accomplices began to circle the building like predators, their presence announced by the deliberate scraping of metal against the windows, keys perhaps, or knives drawn slowly across the glass. The sounds came from different directions, creating a sense of being surrounded, trapped. Michael's hands shook as he dialed 911, his fingers finding the familiar numbers through muscle memory. "This is Michael Carter at 1247 Elm Street, apartment 1A, he whispered into the phone. "3 men are threatening me and trying to break into my apartment." Zeus had positioned himself directly in front of the door, his body rigid with tension, his ear swiveling to track every sound. The dog's breathing was controlled but rapid, every instinct honed by years of training focused on protecting his partner. In the darkness of Michael's world, Zeus had become his eyes, his early warning system, his shield against the malevolent forces gathering outside. The distant wail of police sirens cut through the night like a beacon of hope. Michael felt his shoulders sag with relief as the sound grew closer, accompanied by the rapid retreat of footsteps and the hurried roar of motorcycle engines starting up. Chuck and his friends were fleeing, their courage evaporating in the face of real consequences. 2 officers arrived within minutes, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they examined the area around Michael's apartment. "We found fresh footprints under your window, Mr. Carter," one of them reported, his voice professional but concerned. "Deep impressions in the flower bed, and scratch marks on the glass." The officers were thorough in their investigation, taking detailed notes and photographs of the evidence. "We'll increase patrols in this area," the senior officer assured Michael, "and we'll be looking for those motorcycles. Can you think of anywhere else you might stay tonight?" Michael declined the offer to relocate, choosing instead to remain in his own home with Zeus by his side. As the officers departed, and the building settled into an uneasy quiet, he prepared for bed with the knowledge that his faithful companion would maintain his watch. Zeus had positioned himself by the front door, his body alert despite the late hour. The dog's dedication was absolute. He would not sleep while his partner remained vulnerable. In the darkness, Michael could hear the soft sound of Zeus's breathing, steady and reassuring, a reminder that he was not alone in facing whatever challenges the night might bring. As Michael finally drifted toward sleep, his last conscious thought was of gratitude, for Zeus's unwavering loyalty, for the bond that transcended species, and for the profound truth that some friendships are forged not in joy, but in the crucible of shared adversity. Outside, the city slept, but inside apartment 1A, a guardian kept watch, his amber eyes reflecting the streetlight as he stood sentinel over the man who had given him purpose beyond his years of service. In the quiet hours before dawn, the apartment held two souls bound by trust, loyalty, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his faithful companion, a bond that no amount of intimidation could ever break.